We are starting the book Liquid Luck by Joseph Gallenberger. He's a very senior trainer at the Monroe Institute and also the developer of the MC Square program. He also leads programs to Las Vegas for people to really assess whether their intuition and intuitive abilities are working. He has written another book called Inner Vegas also. So he's written quite a number of books, actually 3 or 4 books. We start with the introduction.
The first day I tried Liquid Luck, we solved a complex hardware-software interface problem in the lab that had resisted our efforts for 2 years. Not bad. I like the format. Very smooth. We'll use it again and let you know what else happens. Thanks, RD. In the past year, I developed a meditation exercise designed to summarize decades of experience teaching manifestation into its essential components. This exercise can be applied effectively in less than 1 hour's time. The idea was for the exercise to provide the listener with an exceptionally lucky day filled with wisdom, synchronicity, and good fortune whenever desired. Within hours of its release on compact disc, as Liquid Luck, a heart based meditation designed to increase good fortune, stories of success began flooding in. I will share many of these stories as we journey through this book. The meditation was constructed to slip under the formidable emotional and belief blocks that usually frustrate attempts to improve our situations and to facilitate immediate access to the special energies needed to create what we desire quickly and easily.
So this is exact. So this is exactly what we were discussing just before we started reading the book. He says very clearly, the meditation was constructed to slip under the formidable emotional and belief blocks that usually frustrate attempts to improve our situation. So again, it is the brain and the heart which have to start working in conjunction. And the problem is our belief systems, because our belief systems are what is the sound which is running in the background all the time, right? So if our belief says this cannot happen and you're attempting to manifest it, it is not going to manifest. So the first thing you need to transcend when we want to go into the manifestation process is the underlying belief system, because that is the foundation on which everything is riding, right? If your belief system is not converted or monitored or tuned or fine tuned, manifestation will never take place.
As time went on, the amazing stories of success continued. People were having results in areas that I had not anticipated, well beyond increased financial abundance. It became clear to me that a book that explored more deeply why the liquid luck meditation is so effective and elaborated on the special, even sacred energies triggered by the meditation would be most helpful. The book will include many exercises and tips for generating and sustaining these important manifestation energies.
So we have actually done the meditation in our regular 345 meditation. And maybe, during the reading of this book, we'll do it 1 or 2 more times.
While Liquid Luck, the meditation, was designed to trigger an exceptionally lucky day, Liquid Luck, the book reveals why this works and how these same principles applied more broadly every day can result in a life filled to the brim with abundance, love, and happiness. This state of continuous well being can benefit the reader, loved ones, and the larger community in significant ways. As with meditation, I am committed to making this book as clear, concise, and practical as possible.
So one thing is very clear, and we've seen it over and over again. If your state of consciousness changes, then you start affecting the environment in which you are residing. you start affecting the people with whom you are loving. I mean, living. And also you raise the energy vibrations. If your energy vibration rises, then you raise the vibratory frequency of everyone around you, your space where you're living, everything that is working with you also. So naturally, it's all a matter of raising our frequency at the end of the day.
My book, Inner Vegas Creating Miracles, Abundance and Health, describes in detail my journey of discovery and application of energy to influence physical reality in my own life and then with my students. I will summarize Inner Vegas here in a few paragraphs so that you can have some idea where I am coming from up to the point where liquid luck begins.
So
I'm a
as mentioned before, he has been taking groups of people to Las Vegas, and they have developed systems to actually play the various games which are there, which are based on probability, and to screen the probability uh, in the throw of the dice or on the roulette table, and then be able to pick the right numbers, to be able to make the right bets. They don't bet a large amount of money, okay, small amounts of money, but the fact what they are looking for is whether they can predict and whether they can influence the dice or the ball to fall on the number that they want it to fall on. It's a very fun kind of a program. It's in my bucket list to go and attend it with him.
I am a clinical psychologist with 30 years' experience as a therapist. I retired from clinical practice about 9 years ago to devote my time to teaching how to enhance what we manifest into our lives. In 1992, I began to investigate psychokinesis, PK, which is the ability to influence matter through non physical means. PK can be used to illuminate light bulbs, bend metal and plastic, sprout seeds in your hand, influence computers, dice, and slot machines, and create healing and abundance, all just using the power of your human energy in a special way. Being able to do these things is incredibly exciting to me. Another great thing about PK is that it can be measured scientifically and results can be shown, often in minutes, giving ultra clear feedback that something important is happening.
Okay, so PK is using extrasensory perceptions and extrasensory abilities to do things that are normally physically not possible. Now, whenever PK is at play, it influences the environment, it influences the electronic equipment. So it can actually be measured electronically in the electricity generated. So there is one experiment that they constantly do at the MC Square program, is that they have a quartz crystal which is connected to an equipment which is measuring the amount of electricity being generated in the quartz crystal. And it has been seen that in certain exercises during the MC Square program, what happens is that the electrical voltage being generated by the crystal shifts and changes. The other thing is that there are something called random number generators. Now, these random number generators are being installed all over the world by a program called the Global Coherence Program. It is being led by many institutes which are involved in investigation of altered states of consciousness, like Institute of Heart Math. Monroe Institute is also involved. Uh, uh, the this thing, the astronaut who made ions is involved, and many other such institutes are involved in that. What they have done is they've placed these random number generators at isolated places all over the world. And whenever a world event is happening, anything really major is happening, they see whether the random number generators zero and ones get screened. Now, normally a random number generator, it's generating one and zero. It's like when we flip a coin, the probability is 50% of the time we'll get heads, 50% of the time we'll get tails. But if a major event is happening where the focus of a large number of people is on a particular event, then these numbers get screened. You'll have more ones than zeros or more zeros than ones. And that shows that focused attention of a large number of people or of a single person also can shift and screen the random number generators. That means they're screening what is natural and it shifts. The shifts get created. So of course, PK is that ability to cause effect, which is not normally possible in our normal 3D state of consciousness that we normally live in.
Achieving powerful PK results to a high degree of statistical significance at a universal laboratory under controlled conditions allowed me to know that PK was real. The experiments gave me a taste of how wonderful the energy needed to do PK felt. As I was applying PK and seeing results, my heart would often be pounding. I felt surges of joy, gratitude, and amazement.
So when you hit the PK state of consciousness, it can be a very, very uplifting state, right? Now, over here, what you need to be aware of is that if ego starts coming into the picture, then it's like slaughtering your own feet, you're cutting your own feet. So you have to be in that awe, you have to be in that abundance, you have to be connecting to a higher source for PK to start actually, manifesting.
After 5 years of developing methods to convey this skill to groups, I have used my discoveries to host over 70 Inner Vegas Adventure workshops in the casinos of Las Vegas, where participants journey deeply into personal power. My students often achieve dramatic physical and psychological healing, strong influence over dice and slot machines, and many marvelous manifestations in their lives at home. The casino is an excellent classroom because in using PK to manifest abundance, therewith the concrete feedback of win and loss, it is clear within minutes whether the person is being effective at the principles being taught. And with even small amounts of money being wagered, motivation and attention to the lessons is very high. This allows very rapid learning of the mental and emotional field and skill set required for the most effective manifesting of what one desires.
So very clear over here, right? Feedback is extremely important. If I'm going into a state and doing something, then what is the result of that? If I do not know what's the result, I'm never going to really understand what I'm doing. So that's why all kinds of biofeedback tools become very, very important. For example, we have a lot of biofeedback tools in awareness. One of them is the mind mirror, where we actually connect the temporal lobe and the occipital lobe of people, and we can actually see their brainwave pattern on screen. And using that, you can actually assess what's the state of consciousness of that particular person. Now, it can also be used as a self-training tool, because if you're being able to see your brainwave pattern and what is it that you're feeling, you can actually connect the subjective with the objective, and then make, by seeing what you're doing, what it is creating on screen, you can actually start cultivating the states of consciousness that you want by seeing your brainwave pattern on screen. Another biofeedback tool that we have is the EM wave, which actually tests or puts on screen something called your HRV. Now, the HRV is what the heart, the level at which the heart is beating and how it is beating. And it is a very, very clear indicator of stress, whether you're stressed out or not. So if you're stressed, the HRV will work in a particular way. If you're in coherence, if you're in equanimity and balance, it will work in a separate way, right? So now if you're stressed out, you can use tools or any kind of application that you're using. You can actually see on screen whether that application is working or not. So it becomes very powerful when you see something working right there on screen. So over here, what he's talking about, that if I'm going into that state of consciousness, I'm rolling the dice, I want to affect the roll of the dice, and I can see the result immediately. So that gives me biofeedback. It tells me that, okay, this is the state of consciousness in which I was able to manifest the most. So then you can start actually inculcating that state of consciousness when you want to do manifestation, or you're looking for something to be created in your day-to-day life also. So this Vegas adventure became a very powerful biofeedback process for us to for the participants to understand what they were doing.
When some people see or hear the word Vegas, they immediately respond, "Oh, this is not for me. I don't gamble." Well, if you have ever married, had children, started a business, or even crossed the street in traffic, you are indeed a high roller, in that you are taking risks or gambling with such things as your health and happiness, which are much more important than money. To manifest abundance, it is helpful to embrace risk. Risk is good. It is how we learn, grow, and change things for the better. I can sympathize if your reaction to risk is leery.
So what is he saying over here? Okay, the idea is not to gamble in these adventures. The idea is to harness your mental abilities and your mental powers, and your ability to perceive what is right and what is wrong. What are the steps that you can take forward to create value in your life, right? Every moment in time, we have choices, every moment in time. And every time we make a choice, we take a risk. So the idea here is that what is the state of consciousness with which you are going to that adventure, that you're placing a bet? What is the underlying emotion behind placing the bet? Is it greed? Is it wanting to be able to assess whether you can actually predict it or not? Or you're doing a study, right? And then creating value for yourself to be able to use it in other areas of your life. So there was a study done where they found it was an Australian study. It comes in the Resilience Advantage program that we conduct from the Institute of Heart Math. There was a survey done of the most successful people in Australia, all the CEOs, etc., who were very, very successful. 95% of them said that they used their gut when they were taking a decision. So where does that come from? This is what we are talking about here, that ability to perceive which risk will be beneficial to you and which risk you should take and which risk you should not take, because it's not going to be beneficial to you.
Most of us, including me, were taught that, "Oh, that is risky," meant caution. Stop, do not proceed, or you will hurt yourself or others. However, we would not have any new inventions, companies, marriage proposals, or progress if everyone avoided all risk. Would it not be better to learn how to risk intelligently, with clear access to the wisdom and intuition of your heart, and surefire access to the correct energy to maximize chances of success? That is what is taught in my workshops.
So again, any decision that we take in life, we are always taking a risk. But if I can have access to that intuitive ability to be able to actually harness that power, to be able to be right more than wrong, right? We will always be successful. And the distinction between a successful person and an unsuccessful person is that a successful person will make 7 out of 10 correct decisions. An unsuccessful person will make 4 out of 10 correct decisions. That's all. There is nothing more to it, right? So the more correct decisions that you make, the better off you will be. So in all the workshops, even in the excursion workshop, you learn a technique called the one breath technique. You learn to go into these altered states where you can actually access intuition. And in the Vegas adventure, he is actually harnessing, they actually do meditations, etc., also in the Vegas adventure, where they are actually going into an altered state, and then they are going and playing the crap tables, or they are betting on the roulette table, or playing the slot machines. That when is the right time to increase my bet? When is the right time to decrease my bet? So it's all intuition. And over here, he clearly says, right over here, to clear access of wisdom and intuition of your heart, right? He doesn't say over here intuition of the brain. He says the intuition of the heart. And as a society, all of us have become very much more left brain than right brain. The right brain is what connects to the heart. But we've all become so logical that we've lost that ability to take the gestalt, to take a snapshot and be able to act on it, right? When we connect to the intelligence of the heart, that is what starts to manifest for us.
I am also a senior facilitator at the Monroe Institute. I train a spectrum of Monroe programs and develop the Institute's highly successful MC squared Manifestation and Creation Squared program, which teaches psychokinesis, healing, and manifestation. I also developed Sync Creation, a course in manifestation, which is the home study version of the MC Squared program. I journey internationally as a workshop presenter on these topics.
So during the MC Square program at the Institute, we actually learn how to bend spoons and forks. I think most of you have attended the excursion workshop. So I've shown you pictures of the bent spoons and forks. I could show you also over here for those who have not seen them. So I'll just show a few.
Unmute.
Okay, so see, this is a fork that I bent personally. This has been bent by me at the program when I attended the MC Square program. So I have many forks and spoons like this. Learn how to, we grew seeds, and in that 6 days of the program, the leaves of the seeds started to sprout, which normally takes maybe 15 days or a month for the leaves to start coming out. So we lit light bulbs with our hands. We were taken into a darkened room, and just by placing our hands and with intention, the light bulbs actually lit up. So lots of stuff happens in this MC Square program at the Monroe Institute.
The Monroe Institute, TMI, is world renowned as a place to explore the potentials of human consciousness using a special technology called HemiSync. This HemiSync technology uses something called binaural beats, listened to over headphones that allow the listener to move easily into deep meditative states without years of practice. This deep meditation effect is achieved without need for any particular dogma. It works for atheists, Christians, Buddhists, Republicans, and Democrats alike.
So HemiSync is the technology patented by the Monroe Institute. It is multi-layered binaural beats. Now, normally you can get binaural beats in the if you go into Google and all that, but they are only single binaural beats. Here, in one track, you can have up to 35 binaural beats working. So it's very, very efficient and very effective in taking you into altered states. And this is the technology used in the excursion workshop and most of the Monroe programs. Apart from this, of course, now new technologies are also being developed at the Institute. And now they have renamed it MAS, Monroe Audio Systems. Okay. So it's, I mean, a lot of stuff, a lot of more innovation is coming. Hopefully, we'll be able to bring everything to India slowly.
My connection with the Monroe Institute is important to understand because part of the success of Liquid Luck, the recording, is because it uses a binaural beat technology similar to which I had been working with for over 2 decades at TMI. And this allows people listening to Liquid Luck to enter the enhanced states of awareness needed to easily and quickly tap into the special energies that I will be discussing in this book. For those interested, I will go into more detail about this amazing technology and how it can help with abundance goals in chapter 11 of this book.
So it's basically he's using literally the hemisync technology in liquid luck. I actually know the person who put the frequencies in the tracks.
By the start of college, I was familiar with books that discussed abundance creation, including Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking, first published in 1952. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, first published in 1937, and Esther and Jerry Hicks, The Law of Attraction, recently popularized by the film The Secret. In fact, these types of books go back at least to Middle Egyptian dynasty times in a work called the Kabbalion. But for me, all of this reading usually produced only weak or mixed results most of the time, until the study and practice of PK lit a fire under me by suggesting how to actually raise and focus the right kind of energy for miracle results.
So all these books, okay, when you look at these books, they are either materialistically screened or they are logically screened. They miss the heart, what we were again talking right in the beginning of the session. The feeling and the thinking has to go hand in hand for manifestation to take place. Otherwise, manifestation will not take place. So that's why he clearly says that applying the tenets explored in all these books gave him mixed results. They didn't give him proper results. Okay. The Secret, for one, became extremely popular, but then when you apply the tenets of what is given in the book Secret, you actually start limiting yourself, and it is an all and out materialistic book. One of the people who were listed in the Secret, Joe Vitale, who later on went on to write the book Zero Limits, very clearly said that they missed the point in the Secret. And then he goes on to explain that in his book Zero Limits.
It is fair to ask why this area of manifestation was and is so important to me. On July 15, 1991, my dear brother Peter committed suicide. This rocked my world deeply. I wrote Brothers Forever, An Unexpected Journey Beyond Death, which was published in 1996 as a result of this experience. Peter was handsome, intelligent, honest, hardworking, generous, and charismatic, yet he could not create success in work, and after decades of effort, slowly sunk into despair.
So this is another nice book where he actually, discusses how he grieved and then what was his connection and what was the communication he received from his brother so that he could transcend the loss of his brother.
In my agonizing about the meaning of this event, I began to ponder what happens when we don't positively influence our lives, and even worse, what happens if we tend to manifest the exact opposite of what we want on a regular basis. Negative PK, if you will.
Okay. So this is very important, right? So how are we thinking and what state of consciousness are we operating from will result in what will manifest. So if you look at yourself, most of the time, what are you thinking? What you want or what you don't want? Let me tell you, most of the time we think, hey, this should not happen. I don't want this to happen. And that is what happens. Why? Because we are giving what the guys up there, they don't understand no, not, won't, can't. They don't get it, right? So if you're saying I can't do this, means you can do it. If you say I don't want this, means you want it, right? So we are constantly giving power, or over here what he says, negative PK, if you will, right? So we need to be very aware of our thoughts. What are we thinking? And what are we feeling when we do these things? Okay, when we are looking at manifestation.
And what would cause a distortion in our life path, such as chronic negative manifestation and all the suffering it produces for us and those around us? I realized fairly quickly that the main driver of such distortion was not a vengeful God, but rather the playing out of the formidable energy of fear coupled with limiting beliefs.
So this is very important, right? Most of the time we are operating out of fear that ye karne se kya ho jayega, ye karne se kya ho jayega, right? And plus we are limited by our belief system, because from as children we are taught you cannot do this, or don't do this, don't do this, you'll get hurt. So how many times, if you have a small child in your house, how many times do you tell your child, okay, go ahead and do it? And how many times you tell your child, no, don't do this, don't do this. Be observant. You'll figure it out yourself, right? So the idea here is that we need to transcend our fears and we need to transcend our belief system. Robert Monroe always said to generate escape velocity. Why are we here? We want to generate escape velocity from this box that we have created for ourselves. We need to go higher and higher. We need to drop these belief systems which are limiting to us and generate escape velocity. Nagarji in the Gita classes constantly is telling us that what are we here for? He says, jago or bhago. What does that mean? Become aware and then start running and doing things which will help you to generate escape velocity. So this becomes very important to transcend our fears and transcend our belief systems.
It does appear that we live in a free choice universe where we are free to think and feel negatively or positively. But the way we think and feel tends to become fairly habitual. And when we do this consistently in one direction, that direction, whether negative or positive, begins to manifest and reinforce that particular direction, perpetuating the cycle, be it negative or positive.
So what does this mean, right? We go into habits, we go into patterns, right? The same thing keeps manifesting, keeps repeating in our lives, and we don't pay attention to it. We don't like it, but we say we don't like this, we don't like this, we don't like this. We are actually giving that thing more energy. We need to focus on what we want, not on what we don't want. And then we need to notice these patterns which are there and transcend the patterns, because we are here to learn, right? Now, a good teacher, if a student has not learned a lesson, isn't a good teacher going to repeat that lesson? Okay. So now the universe is a beautiful teacher. So if you've not learned the lesson, the universe is going to constantly repeat that lesson for you. So if you don't pay attention to what is being repeated in your life, then you are the idiot, in my view, right? So it's very important for us to start paying attention to the patterns which are there, which also are equivalent to what our habits are. So if we have an uplifting habit, very good, no problem. But if you have a depleting habit, then you need to pay attention to that habit and we need to transcend it. Otherwise, we are going off in one skewed direction, which ultimately we really don't want to go that way.
It was clear from my brother's experience that it is not sufficient to be a good person. One must also feel deserving of receiving goodness, learn to alleviate fear, and to be in positive energy.
So I am a good person doesn't work, right? If I'm not willing to receive. So one of the things when we do the excursion workshop in the gateway affirmation, the third step is asking for help, right? If I'm not open to receiving help, if I'm not open to receiving goodness, how can I expect abundance in my life? If I'm constantly thinking that, no, I am not worthy of this, then the universe will say, okay, you think you're not worthy of it. That is what you want to manifest in your life. So we need to think ourselves to be worthy. Again, There's a distinction over here between egoistic thinking and thinking out of love. We are actually opening ourselves to abundance when we are operating from gratitude, when we are operating from appreciation. But most of the time, what are we doing? We are always depreciating everything around us rather than appreciating what is there around us. So appreciation and gratitude will take us into an uplifting flow of energy or positive energy. And every time you're criticizing, you're beating yourself down, you're going into a depleting state of consciousness. And, manifestation can never take place when you're in a depleted state, because manifestation requires energy, right? So unless you have that energy which is uplifting, you can never manifest in your life.
Catalyzed by my brother's death and often seeing similar patterns in my psychotherapy clients, I began to look at this more deeply. It seems that most people do little to actively influence their lives in a positive direction, except applying things such as study, hard work, and hope to goals that they would like to achieve. With a good bit of fear mixed in that they perhaps will not get the break or are not good enough.
So
That
what does
often,
this mean? So what does this mean over here, right? People start working hard, but and they want to achieve something, but always they are fearful whether it will be achieved or not. So what is it? One side is pulling to the left side, the other thing is pulling to the right side. So the fear is pulling you that nahi hoga, and you're working hard ki hoga. So you're countervailing each other, right? So that's why again manifestation will never take place, because you're constantly cutting your own feet.
that often results in a life with a mixture of good and bad things happening. There seems to be a continuum of those who seem to be naturally lucky people to folks where most everything seems to go wrong. When we look more closely at each of the opposite ends of the spectrum, it becomes apparent that we are doing much to actively create our reality.
So we have no one to blame for what is happening in our life but ourselves. It's very clear when we are going into expanded states, when we are going into focus 27, etc., that we plan what we are going to experience in this life. Even in the Vedanta, the principles, it is said that it is your prarabdha. Okay. So what is your prarabdha vasanas? That is what is manifesting in your life. And you have certain settled down vasanas, which is the sanchit vasanas, that once in this life your prarabdha vasanas are over, in the next life you're going to get the influence of the sanchit vasanas which are there, the most matured of the sanchit vasanas. And ultimately, to transcend, you have to get rid of all these vasanas. So vasanas are what? Attachments, desires. The moment we can start transcending them, that is when we will get escape velocity, to escape from this cycle of birth and rebirth and birth and rebirth. And we will not get stuck. Okay. So the idea here is that we are responsible for creating our reality. No one else is responsible.
As in my brother's case, because of ever increasing fear that he would not make it in the context of mounting intolerable financial pressures, negative manifestation can result in disaster. On the other end of the continuum, we see ever increasing success, and we have the cultural wisdom the rich get richer. So, we have some people who often unconsciously create horrendous situations for themselves, and those who create mostly richly rewarding experiences. Most people are hampered to a greater or lesser degree by their fears and lack of miracle energy. Yet some people enjoy an ever increasing arc of good fortune and often then bless the world with their abundance of ideas, money, job creation, and solutions to important problems. Yes, It is possible to make a great deal of money on the backs of others, but this tends to come at a great personal cost in other important areas of abundance, such as happiness, health, nurturing relationships, and spiritual progress.
So again, I can go this way or that way, depending on my belief systems, the way I am operating. But then when I get there, what is my consciousness? What is the conscious awareness with which I'm operating will actually result in whether I'm happy or I'm in the uplifting flow of energy, or I'm again in a depleting state of consciousness. So I may be a very rich man in monetary terms, but in personal happiness, I may be a very poor man. Okay. So I am creating abundance in one aspect, but I'm generating disabundance in another aspect. So that's why balancing both these processes, the material and the spiritual, becomes extremely important.
I feel it is very important to understand how we manifest our individual and collective lives because at this time there is a high degree of fear in our world that is pulling us towards manifesting a very negative future. For example, because of fear of terrorism now, we see our privacy rights in the US being diminished, where much of what we do is monitored and we can be taken without charges or legal representation to an unknown place for an unlimited time in the name of Homeland Security. So we have moved from the threat of terrorism taking away some our citizens' freedoms to live happily and healthy to our fierce response to terrorism, which indeed takes away the freedom, privacy, and important rights of all our citizens. This shift has been dramatic. When
Okay.
I traveled
So,
in,
so over here, we need to understand, right, that the idea here is that because we are operating out of fear most of the time, it is really drawing the energy down. Now, there is another book by David Hawkins, Power versus Force. We've talked about it before also. Over there, he clearly labels the levels of consciousness. So fear is way down, right? Now, to live normally, we have in that scale of consciousness, we have to be at least 200. But if we are living below that, then things go in a downward spiral. If we are living above that, then it goes into an upward spiral. Now, what we have also seen is that for any kind of manifestation to take place, it needs some kind of power, it needs some kind of energy. So we've developed a method, which is again, it's a method, right? It's not 100% accurate, but it can tell us that what is the level of consciousness you need to operate to manifest a certain thing on that scale of consciousness of David Hawkins. Now, if I need to be at say 420 to manifest something, but I am operating at 30, it is never going to manifest. So until I put certain procedures, certain processes, which will raise my level of consciousness to that level, so that that manifestation can take place. But if we are operating out of fear, fear is way down in that scale. I can just pull that up for you all if you like. Let me see, where is it? Okay, we'll do it later. I can't see it here. Yeah, we'll do it later.
this shift has been dramatic. When I traveled in Europe pre 9/11, there was a palpable appreciation and desire for the American way of life. Now, when I travel there, folks respectfully take me aside and express concern that the American dream is dying in the United States. And many Europeans report their fear of coming to visit what they see now as the American police state, particularly if they have experienced firsthand the entry process for foreign visitors established at our borders after 9/11.
So, so definitely, previously when you went to America, there was a lot of freedom, there was a lot of flexibility. Now the kind of checks, etc., that you need to make, you need to open your shoes, this, that. Now, of course, it started to come to India also. So the paranoia or the security threat. Of course, it's come down a little bit now, but it was tremendous. After 9/11, like they were paranoid. Anyone with a beard, they used to take aside. So, all those things were there. I'm just sharing the screen with you. With Shivangla, I'm stopping your sharing, but you'll have to share it again. So can you all see this scale of consciousness? Just look at these two figures, okay? If you see fear is at 100, and when we go into uplifting, courage is the one in the middle. Pride, ego is also below that 200 mark. But when you really want to start creating and manifesting, you have to go into these higher frequencies. That is willingness, acceptance, reason, and then love. Okay. So the two primordial emotions are love and fear. And when we are operating out of fear, we are on the bottom side. And when we look at the resilience grid also, we are on the left side of the grid. So all these emotions till pride will put you on the left side of the grid. And all these emotions on the top, including courage, will put you on the right side of the grid. Okay, so this becomes very important. What is the level of consciousness? What is the state of consciousness that you are operating from, which will result in the manifestation that you are looking for? Yes, Kavita Didi?
Yes, so
Shivangla, you can
Niket,
share your screen
yeah.
open.
Niket, I
Yes,
was just wondering, so today only we were discussing how this COVID news is coming and everyone is so fearful. And
correct,
how I was talking that, if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. If why fear about it?
correct.
So maybe is what we are doing at awareness again and again, trying to be in the right side of the grid.
Yeah,
Maybe that's helping us.
101%, because you are in an uplifting thing, right? Now, if you are involved in something positive, if you are involved in something uplifting, then you're not in that corona. How much do we discuss corona over here, right? But
No.
you start your TV. Now, if you're going to be watching TV the whole day it will be corona में इतना मर गया, इतना ये हो गया, इतना वो हो गया. ठीक है? Now, today, personally speaking, I've stopped reading newspapers for the last, I think, 15 years. Because
Same here.
I feel that, if you open the newspaper, you will find that 95% of the news is negative news. It's depleting news. And most people start reading it right in the morning. So what are you feeding to your brain? Are you feeding something which is uplifting? Are you feeding something which is totally depleting? It doesn't make sense at all, right? So the fact of the matter is that what are you paying attention to becomes so important in your level of consciousness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This saddens me deeply, but I also see the immense reserve of goodwill, creativity, and love of freedom that exists in the United States, and know we can get back on track if we can get our fear under control. And that starts by the majority of us individually getting our own fear under control and visioning a positive future. Spoiler alert: I used to try to meet fear with courage. Now I melt fear with love.
Okay, now this becomes important over here. He says, starts with the majority of us individually getting out of our own fear or getting our fear under control and visioning a positive feature. Now, I have stopped, looking at positive and negative, because what may be positive in one place may be negative in another, right? So I look at uplifting fields and depleting fields. That's what I focus on. Now, I used trying to meet fear with courage. That means, you're going to fight with something. And the other thing is you meet it with love. Now, this is something which is very interesting, which I found when I was doing Vastu and energy field rectifications in people's houses, etc. Many times we encountered energy fields. Okay, you could call them entities, you could call them spirits, etc. In the beginning, when I used to go there, I used to go with a mindset that I'm going to fight with them and going to kick them out of this place. And I used to get a backlash. There were times when after coming back from an appointment, I used to be laid out for a few days. So I couldn't move at all because it took a lot of energy, right? Because you're fighting with the guy. Ultimately, I realized that fighting is no use. You need to encompass them. You need to deal with it with love. Ask them what do you want at the end of the day. Now, if they get what they want, then why are they going to create a problem? So when you shift from fear to love, automatically things will start working in your life, because the energy flow of love is much more powerful than fear. Okay, fear is depleting, love is uplifting.
And this book will give you many ways to invoke the power of love to do this. My new mantra is: fear is expensive, love is priceless. Choose wisely. Someone was kind enough to put my saying on a wooden sign and gift it to me. I placed the sign on the wall of my office near my computer, where I see it many times a day. This is good because I need to be reminded of it often. From my point of view, we are very much in need to understand how we create our reality and master the tools needed for creating a positive future at this tipping point in our society. My hope is that this book will help many individuals create a much more heavenly situation for themselves, knowing that this is likely to positively impact those around them. But even further, as groups of people live from these empowering principles, we can make rapid progress in creating a great future for the world community.
Okay, I think we can stop here.